Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to my Impress Your Date series. This lesson is chicken pot pie. Who doesn't love chicken pot pie on a cold winter night, especially if it's homemade? Your date is sure to be impressed by this chicken pot pie, which is like the ones you love with one important difference. Instead of using pre-made pie crusts, I use puff pastry, which makes a rich, delicate, and crunchy crust. So let's start cooking. Okay, the first thing on our prep list is to preheat the oven to 375 degrees. Okay, the next thing on our prep list is to brush the dish that we're going to use for the gratin. I'm going to use these Pyrex bowls. They're oven proof. You want something about this size for a nice, large, individual serving. You could use something smaller like this for an individual serving, but with this size, I think there'll be more than enough for each person, and you may have some leftover. Now, you can butter it in two ways. You can either use a brush and some melted butter, or you can use a butter wrapper. This is really probably the best way to butter things. Take a butter wrapper, it usually has some residual butter on it, and then just move it around, smear it around inside your container, and it's a great way to butter it. All right, now we're going to roll out our puff pastry, and I have a floured surface here. I have a floured rolling pin, and I have lightly dusted the puff pastry with flour, and we're going to roll that out until we think it's about the right size to go into our dish. Okay? Good. That looks pretty good. Now let's take our dish, lift our pastry up off of the surface. Now, if it tears a little bit, it's okay. You can repair puff pastry just by pressing another piece of it into where the tear or the hole is. Okay, so we're going to carefully press that down into our dish and press it in there. I've got a little hole here. I'm just going to patch that with another piece of the puff. Get it up to the edges. And then I'm going to trim along the outside of the dish. All right, now we're going to roll out a piece of pastry to go on the top of the dish, okay? And I have here just a smaller piece because it only has to cover the top, right? It doesn't have to line the whole dish. And we're going to just roll that out until it's of a size that will fit on top of the dish. There, that should fit nicely. Okay, now it's time to blind bake our shell, basically. So what we're going to do is use a fork to prick the bottom of the puff so that air can escape. Then we're going to put in some piece of parchment paper, okay? And then we're going to add some beans as weights. Now, you could use pie weights, but dried beans are just as good. And you can reuse the beans later. So we're just going to put in enough beans to provide some weight in there so that when this starts to bake in the oven, the puff pastry won't be able to lift up off the bottom because of the weight of the beans. All right, now we're going to put this into the oven, and we're going to let it, and this is called blind baking. It means that you're baking without any filling, okay? So we're going to put it in the oven, and we're going to let it blind bake for 20 minutes, and then we'll check it. Now we want to cook the chicken pieces and the carrots, celery, the potatoes, the thyme, some salt, lightly, freshly ground black pepper, again, lightly. We're going to adjust the seasoning later, all right? And then you want to add some chicken stock. This is unsalted chicken stock, just to cover everything. This is about 1.5 cups, actually. Then you want to put that on medium heat. And there we go. And we want to bring that to a boil. Then we're going to simmer it for about 20 minutes. Now, while our chicken and vegetables are coming to a boil, we're going to sweat the onions. So we're going to take about 3 tablespoons of butter, and we're going to let that melt And when that's melted, we're going to add the onions, medium heat. All right, let's add the onions to the butter. We're going to lightly season them with a little salt and pepper. Again, we're going to be adjusting the seasoning later, so just use light salt and pepper at this point. Now we're going to let those cook, stirring them from time to time until they are soft and translucent. Okay, our vegetables and chicken are coming to a boil, so we're going to put the heat down to simmer, cover it, let this simmer for 20 minutes. If it starts to boil over, even on the low simmer, use a heat deflector underneath of it, or move it off of the heat a little bit so that the heat is not directly under the pan. Okay, so we're going to let that simmer for 20 minutes covered. Okay, our onions are looking great. Oh, and they smell great. Onions cooked in butter, boy. Can't get better than that. Okay, so these are translucent. We're going to keep them warm until we are ready for the next step. Okay, we've been simmering our vegetables for 20 minutes. Now what we're going to do, turn off the heat. We're going to drain the stock out of those vegetables, but I'm going to keep both, okay? So what we're going to do is get the stock out of there, then put the vegetables back into the pot, and got them in the pot here. We're going to remove the thyme, throw that away, and then we are going to, here we have the thyme sprigs, we're going to throw that away. Then we're going to keep this warm until we are ready for the next step. And then we're going to take this stock and we're going to use that in a later step. Okay, here we have our onions. They've gotten a little brown on them, which I love. That'll add some extra flavor, okay? Now we're going to add the flour, and we're going to stir that around, get that mixed in, okay? And we're going to stir that and let it cook for about 2 or 3 minutes. We do that mainly so we cook off the floury taste. Okay, so our flour and onions and butter have been cooking and stirring for about 2 to 3 minutes. Now we're going to add that chicken stock, and we're going to add the milk, and we're going to stir and cook this for about 2 or 3 minutes till it starts to thicken. Try to break up the lumps. Okay, so our mixture is lightly boiling here, and it's thickening up nicely, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the chicken and vegetables, all right? And then we're going to add the peas. Stir this up while you're doing it. You don't want it to burn. I turn down the heat a little bit so we don't have so much bubbling. And then we're going to stir in the bacon. Stir this up well. Put it on low heat. Now we're going to taste it. Why are we tasting it now? We're adjusting the seasoning. If there's not enough salt or pepper, we're going to add some, okay? Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of salt. And a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. Stir it up. And we'll taste it again. All right, let's taste it. Perfect. Okay, now that is ready to go into the filling. I'm going to keep it, though, off heat until I'm ready to do that. All right, now it's been 20 minutes that we've been blind baking. Our crust looks really good. It hasn't puffed up at the bottom because we had the weights there. Now we're going to fill it. Okay, now we want to take the top piece, and I'm going to trim it so that it's just round, but a little bit bigger than the dish itself. Okay. Okay, now what we're going to do is roll it around the edges. Now what we're going to do is just flute it a little bit around the edges by having two fingers on the inside and then pushing the other finger between those two fingers to flute it a little bit. Okay, then we want to cut a couple of slits and then brush it with our egg wash. Now, I know people who can do the top and flute it a whole lot better than I can, but this is a rustic one. It's going to look good. It's going to look beautiful when it comes out of the oven. So this is going to go into the oven now for 35 minutes. Okay, here we have the beautiful finished pot pie. Beautiful golden color. You can see photos of the final dish on my Instagram, which is at Chef's Apprentice, Cook Like a Pro. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and have a great date.